let's start with what is the first thing you want to know?
All right. So when I started this about 1 year ago, my goal was to build an audience, build content. And I knew that would take some time. And then I've always heard build the audience and then you can always figure out the monetization. So I'm at the point now, I've built an audience. I've got over 12,000 people on Instagram, 100,000 plus downloads on the podcast. I have a couple sponsors, but I'm starting to plateau or I'm struggling to figure out how to productize this problem and this audience community that we've built.
Okay. So talk to me about the audience and sort of what you think has attracted them to you and sort of how you're helping or serving them. And I know you said before that you know you have sort of problem market fit. And I'm curious, how do you know that? What makes you so sure?
It's a good question, especially because on social media, you're kind of putting stuff out there. And a lot of times the response is when you start to see what people really want. Where I really discovered it is on our Instagram. We started running kind of these like anonymous share your stories. And, the first time there's 10 people talking about how co-parenting is hard. And then next thing was 50 people. And then they're saying, oh my God, I'm going through that too. And we have a weekly audience, a community where people are like, thank you so much for providing this info. My spin on things is to make it a little funny. We do memes. We kind of laugh about it all. So coming at divorce from a more relatable angle. But the Instagram is the main place where I'm seeing like the direct feedback from people saying, I've never heard people talk about this problem. I feel like I'm the only one going through it. Thank you.
And at the moment, how are you trying to monetize?
So right now I'm going two different directions. I got the podcast, which I run a few times a week, and I cut it into clips, kind of like your model of short, digestible. So we have two sponsors that are very big in the divorce world, like a co-parenting app that pays to be a podcast sponsor, and then another popular divorce app for people dealing with alcoholism. And then the other angle that I really was trying to push and have got off the ground, and we have 50 plus professionals, is if you are a divorce lawyer, if you're a realtor, if you're a mortgage broker, an estate planner, you can be on our site, featured on our site, where we're getting, over 1,000 people coming to the site a month. Our audience is seeing you. So put yourself in front of the audience that you guys are trying to connect with.
Okay. And so it sounds like at the moment, you're mostly trying to, I always say there's a difference between selling to your audience and selling your audience to other people. And I think it's one of the first key decisions to make. You can succeed either way, but I think it's really important to think about that because all the other decisions you make, and some people you may ultimately do both, but in terms of where your focus is initially. So the products you have at the moment are selling your audience to other people, not selling to your audience. Is that a conscious decision or is that just sort of how it's played out?
It actually is, because I know one of the big problems of divorce is money. You're spending a ton of money. You're just getting out of $50,000 worth of debt. I thought, why can't we provide all this content that these businesses are built around and charge the business to get in front of this audience that a lot of their Instagram pages are like, Happy New Year, 3 things to do with your divorce. So it was a conscious effort to like, let me not say sign up for this course for $39 because I see that a lot. I know I'm not representative of everybody in the divorce community, but not always the first thing I want to go do is pay for an online course. So I thought, let me build the audience and maybe the B2B business model would be a better route.
Okay. So something to keep in mind that essentially it's one business, but there are two things that are both related and unrelated. So the fact that people are finding it helpful, people are liking it, you're growing an audience, there's a community there, people are engaging, they're responding, all of that stuff that makes you feel like, oh, I have product market fit, but that's not the product. The product is businesses who want to reach them because they want to get hired as a divorce attorneys or whatever it is that they have to sell. So I think it's important to take a step back. And when you're looking at this, to go the quote unquote audience, I'll call it the audience growth side of it. The audience growth side of it may be doing great, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the monetization side, it doesn't necessarily mean you have product market fit on that side or vice versa. So understanding that the way you're assessing the business, it's funny, engagement can be fool's gold at times. So like I talk about I could share funny cat videos and they might go viral. And I might get more followers and people go, oh, I love you, but they're not going to get me clients. So that alignment piece is really important. And that ultimately what you need is not just someone who's willing to respond to an Instagram prompt and say something and be an active participant, but ultimately someone who is actively going to support your sponsors or buy their products or whatever that case may be. So that doesn't mean that, obviously it's great to have the bigger your audience, the easier that all gets. That's why I say they are related, but they're really different things. And I think it's important to sort of have that mindset. So the next thing is in terms of the monetization piece. So your customer is actually the people, the brands, the companies that want to reach the audience, not the audience. And I think a lot of people fall into the trap of they're so focused on the audience, but if you're not selling to your audience, that's half the battle at most. So I think that's important to understand. So have you had many conversations with the people you do want to sell to, the people that want to reach this audience? And have you talked to them about what do they want, right? Besides, obviously, they want more customers and that kind of thing. Have you had individual conversations with them?
So I just started the sponsorship angle in November. I got two of the bigger ones in the divorce space after persistently following up and saying, look, I did have the conversation. What do you guys want? They said, we want awareness. We want people to visit our Instagram page to learn about the co-parenting app. And what I found too is getting the sponsor is a challenging thing, but keeping them and delivering results is another problem. And actually just, 3 months after the contract, they say, we'd love to renew. So that was a good feeling.
That's great.
To say, you guys are doing something that we can't do. We're kind of more buttoned up. We're divorce attorneys, but you can, talk about the real stuff and then direct them over to us. So far it's good, but I just haven't found.
Do you know, outside of them wanting to renew, do you know what they got out of it?
The only real way I've been able to measure metrics is clicks on Instagram stories, which I do. I'll screenshot, I'll send them, and I'll say, look, 37 people when I posted about your product went to your page. And unfortunately, they're okay with that. I think they know it's tough to get podcast sponsorship, real analytics about it. But yeah, it's a little bit of a weak thing, but so far they've been satisfied with the
yeah, I would, to the extent that you can, especially obviously they're happy with the performance and, you have a bit of a relationship with them. I would have an open conversation with them and say hey, I'd love to know more, right? You got X number of clicks. You've decided to renew this. You think it's worth it. Why? Is it because it's so hard to get that? Is it because, what do you think? Are you hearing from anyone that said, oh, I found you on that Instagram page? Did you get a customer or client out of it? The metrics can be difficult to track, but somewhere in their mind, when they're assessing whether or not we should renew, they're thinking that stuff through. And that's really important information for you. And I think when you have that conversation with them, you can position it as, you're essentially partners once they become a sponsor, right? So you're saying, look, the more I know about what you're seeing, the more I can help you get more of that end result and get more creative and figure stuff out. So I think that's a really important piece of being in conversation with them and vice versa, right? Someone that advertises and doesn't renew, have that same conversation and go hey, I'd love to know why wasn't this worth it? What did you see in all of that? That information is super valuable. The other thing I would say is it's really important, and this is true of advertising, but it's true of sort of anything you're going to do that involves people paying you money. There are lots of places. Let's say their goal, let's say I'm a divorce attorney, I guess, and my goal is to get clients. And there are lots of places I can advertise and get quote unquote awareness. So I think it's a good question for you to think about is how would someone solve their problem without buying from you or paying for your offer? What are the alternatives? Because this also gets into pricing. So for example, if that person's saying, okay, I got 37 clicks to my Instagram channel, and that, the alternative was, what would it cost them to get 37 clicks elsewhere? I could run Facebook ads. I could run Instagram ads. Now you start to drill down that, and maybe they don't want to do that because that takes time. They don't know how to do it. Maybe they feel like the quality is not going to be as good. Maybe they feel like it won't convert as well. Maybe some of it is they want they don't want to just be seen as someone advertising in people's feeds. They want the sort of more influencer marketing type thing. But all of those reasons are ultimately what's going to help you sell and help you position your product. Always thinking about what is the alternative, because no matter what you offer, there's a million other ways that people can do and accomplish the same thing. All those other ways have set costs, both financial and time and effort and resources. So it's also going to help you with your pricing and assessing the value of what you have to offer. So those are conversations that you can have with them. And also for yourself, put yourself in those shoes and be like, if I wanted to reach this audience, they might say they want awareness, which is probably true, but ultimately they want clients or sales or customers. They had a choice between you can get 1,000 views from this channel and no clients, or you can get 50 views and 20 clients. They're going to take awareness is going to go out the window. Like awareness is a means to an end. And I think that's the conversation that you want to be having with them. The other thing that I would say along those lines is think about, and you have the advantage of you have some people who have bought and some who are renewing, what are they already paying for? Where else are they advertising? Are you the only Instagram channel that they're sponsoring? Are they doing other ones? Are they sponsoring other podcasts? Like, where else are they spending money to accomplish whatever their goal is? And because there's a big difference between trying to get people to spend new money and getting them to shift money they're already spending. Much easier to get them to shift money. So anyone that's buying from you, or even if they're not buying from you yet, having a conversation and going, your goal is to get clients or get awareness or whatever their goal is. What are you buying? What are you spending? I'm buying X, Y, and Z. Oh, why are you doing that? I'm just not even as in a sales tactic, but just because that's ultimately your competition. And can you find a place in the market for whatever your offer is? And we'll talk about this a little more, I think, in your next question. Your offer is designed to be more compelling and give them a reason to shift that budget, as opposed to just going, hey, you're not spending anything, and if you start spending, I can help you out. My guess is almost all of your targets are already spending money on advertising or awareness of some sort. So that's a very different argument, for example, to go, hey, you're already running Instagram ads. This is a better use of your money than Instagram ads because X, Y, and Z. You may not win that argument. You may not close that pitch, but that's a totally different conversation than going, hey, I got this great channel and we got an awareness. Like, give me some more, find some more budget. So I think those are the key things that I would sort of think about, right? Get as much information as you can about why they're buying, why they're not buying, what their ultimate goals are, because ultimately you're going to craft your product to do that anyway. And then think about where their money is always already going and where you could sort of siphon some of it off to yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's very helpful. It's like I have to almost have two different brains, the audience brain and the business brain. And I'm very empathetic towards my audience and understand where they're coming from. I need to shift that to like understanding where this co-parenting app, what their problems are. And like you said, sounds like people that are already spending money are going to be a lot easier to sell to, and maybe a brand new, smaller company that a few $100s might seem like a huge deal. Along those lines, can I ask you real quick about, so I love your sponsorships and your model for that. Is there like a lot of time where you're building a list of prospects? These are the ideal companies that I want to work with. And is that something I really need to just pause and say, come up with 20 companies? It could be a mattress. It could be a realtor. Yeah, I mean, I have not done that. And there's an episode, we'll link it in the show notes, where I talk all about sort of how I launched my ads and all of that. So I really have not had to do much outreach, although my newsletter was up and running for about 4 years before I even launched the ads. And this is another piece of this, right? I had the advantage that my audience wants to reach the rest of my audience. So I'm able to sell a lot of ads to my audience. You don't necessarily have that because you're talking to people that are going through divorce, not necessarily the people that want to serve. So you might have to do a little more outreach, but I don't think it has to be super time consuming because you have the advantage of a very specific niche where you know who and where these people are. And I think once you sort of hone in on product and, it can sort of speak for itself. I think once you get the messaging a little clearer and clearer on what the product is, I don't think the outreach will be that difficult, won't be that obscure because you'll be able to say, hey, you get X, Y, and Z, and here's what it generates. And also, it's a big enough market where there's a lot of potential there. But yeah, you probably having a list of targets. And also, honestly, like on Facebook, you can go to anyone's Facebook page and see what ads they're running. So you can go to companies and see, you can't see who they're targeting, but you can see the ads. So if nothing else, you go,
this company is currently paying to run Facebook ads. So from that idea of shifting money, if you reach out to them, hey, I saw you're running X, Y, and Z ads. I bet I can outperform. Or what are you getting for that, right? It's a totally different conversation. Yeah, I do think some outreach/research would definitely, could definitely be helpful.
Yeah, that's good. I like that a lot.
Cool.
Very helpful.